कुछ होने और बहुत कुछ होने में इतना सा फर्क है, एक बार सोच के छोड़ देने में और लग के कर दिखाने में। मान लेने में कि जिंदगी ऐसे ही कटेगी और सुबह 4 बजे उठ के सोचने में कि अभी तो बस शुरुआत है। किसी मैगजीन को हाथ में लेने में और उसी मैगजीन के कवर पेज पे होने में इतना सा ही तो फर्क है। वीआईपी सीट में और उसकी पिछली सीट में इतना सा ही तो फर्क है। वो जिसका मैदान ही खुला आसमान है, वही कल जमीन पर तो था। पूछोगे तो बताएगा वो पंछी कि एक दायरे में सिमटने में और पूरी दुनिया को दायरा बनाने में बस इतना सा फर्क है। इतना कितना है? इतना है या इतना है? जो नापेगा वो जाने कि जहां धरती और आसमान मिलते हैं, नानकुर से दूर, अगर मगर शायद से दूर, वहां भी दोनों में फर्क बस इतना सा है। धरती और सातवें आसमान में फर्क बस इतना सा है। ये एक अंतर प्रेरणा, ये हमारी, आपकी, हम सब की अंतर प्रेरणा। एक कदम, एक छलांग, एक बाजी, एक गहरी सांस और एक ललकार खुली हवाओं में कि हाँ, मैं बना हूं उन फिजाओं के लिए, कि हाँ, मैं बना हूं उन ऊंचाइयों के लिए जो ऊंची तो बहुत है पर नामुमकिन भी नहीं, क्योंकि मुमकिन और नामुमकिन में बस इतना सा फर्क है। धूप छांव में फर्क बस इतना सा है। तो बस चलिए फ्रैंचाइज इंडिया के साथ ये फर्क मिटा देते हैं। फ्रैंचाइज इंडिया, 20 years of ideas.
Good morning, all, and thank you for joining us for the third session of this 6-part series called Franstart. The last session was on franchise sustainability, importance of franchise legal agreement, and issues on capital raise, where we covered topics like recruiting quality franchise, various fits to recruit a franchise, ingredients required for sustaining a franchise, life cycle of a franchise, how to develop an effective rollout plan, legal issues and protecting the relationships, why franchisees fail, the Picasso theory, and IIME theory. In case you have missed the last session and have any queries on the above topic covered, please get in touch with our teams. Moving on, today's session is about franchise sales engine, training of franchise sales team. How do you build franchise sales structure and set accountability? Before we start, it is my pleasure to share a brief profile of our speaker for today, Mr. Gaurav Marya, the man who needs no introduction, the force behind creating disruptive franchise strategy for thousands of brands, entrepreneur, author, advisor, innovator, and franchising guru. I have known Gaurav sir for almost a decade now and have had the fortune of witnessing help multiple brands from various industries achieve multifold growth. Mr. Maria is often addressed as father of franchising and is credited with growing and nurturing the franchise industry from when it was a concept known to few to now when every small and big business is looking to utilize this to grow their footprints. Without further delay, I would request Mr. Maria to take over and share his extensive research of over 3 decades with everyone.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you for hosting this show. Welcome, friends, and welcome to the third edition of Franstart series. This series is designed to help upcoming franchise brands who are now looking to start their, the franchising journey, which means that they start franchising their brand. They would need to do a lot of things to be prepared before they venture out and start appointing franchises. This is also very useful for companies who are already franchising because they need to look at it, refresh their business model. Innovation is a key. So I've actually divided this into 6 different parts, and we every time take a different structure. We started with the first series, which was on foundation, basic principles of franchising. Then we went to the next plan, which was around the Picasso theory and also how to develop the right franchise model. Today, ideally, by timeline, we were thinking of doing franchise sales, but I have parked this for the fourth series. Even if we have to extend one more episode, we'll extend that, but I want to really cover everything in the piece. So today is a very important topic. I'm going to talk about what I call science of franchise. And over my last 24 odd years of experience in franchising, this is something which I have understood. And if you really want to understand the science of franchising, today's episode would be very, very interesting. You can make your notes. You can also go and ask as many questions you want to do on a Q&A box. We'll try to do this again in a 45-minute kind of situation. So maybe I have 5-7 minutes at a later stage to really pick up the questions. We're trying to condense this whole course. This was a very long course. I'm trying to bring this into about 6 odd hours, while it is difficult because it's a 16-hour course, which normally we will do as a full workshop for 2 days and a very extensive workshop. But we're trying to condense this as much we want to do that. So even if I go sometime a little faster, go out and ask some questions so that I'm able to give you those answers. As I said, the idea is to give you a lot of information. Even if we had to extend one more episode or two more episodes, we don't mind doing it, because unless and until we cover the entire piece from helping you to build a right franchise model, developing your systems, understand what you're going to understand today, the psychological of the franchising. Then we get into a franchise sales, then we get into franchise management, and finally we'll also talk about different formats of franchising, how to develop a master or an area franchise, and so on and so forth. So let's get started. I'll share my screen. And Deepak, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can see.
Thank you. So we want to talk about the franchising equilibrium, right? So it's a very delicate balance. Franchising is a very, very delicate balance. On one side, you are driving your brand and you want to really make sure that the brand is safeguarded. Second side, you are also responsible for performance of a franchisee and your own business. Third, you need to really engage customer directly, which is now going to come from your franchisee, and a lot of other things really account for it. And any kind of change, which can be in economy, business, format, product, can disturb this equilibrium. It can disturb the entire equilibrium. Like these days, without reasons beyond person's control, the entire equilibrium is done. I was in a morning call with a international franchise company, which we helped come to India, and they opened up their first two stores in India. And because of the COVID, one of the partners actually is a Canadian and one partner is Indian. The partners are not going too well because obviously the situation going on in India, and they are planning to shut the business. Now, the franchisor was very worried, and he came to me. He says it would be phenomenally damaging for the brand. It took 1 year for the brand to enter Indian market, and for reasons beyond their control, if the business is shut, it will have a diverse effect on their brand positioning in India. And the next franchisee, when they would approach, would not really understand the reasons why it went down. Sometimes even an equilibrium between the issues between two partners can really damage the business. So franchise selection becomes a very, very important part. And especially when you're starting off franchising, you need to really see the success of the first 5 to 10 franchises would really determine how well you would going to perform in the times to come. So franchising is a careful design of equilibrium. What is the equilibrium and how we want to do that? And I will start with something which is basics of our life. And that's how I have really written down franchising around those basics. And sometimes it's very easy for you to understand. And today what we're going to do is what you studied in, say, when you started early stage of your school, what you studied remained with you. And this is what I call the science of franchising. I'll come down to that. But before we go into this, let's understand the whole cycle of franchising, how the franchising really works, and what is the kind of a cycle really goes in. If you see this circle, which I've really drawn, and it has 4 different cycles. The first cycle, which you see, is a little bit of a growth cycle. When you are up in the growth, then the only focus for you is the network growth and also the brand management part of it. How do you really continue to manage brand? Brand is still exciting, and you continue to pedal this. And the newer cycle is when you start hitting the maturity. When you becoming mature brand, at that time, your brand starts getting fatigued. You need to bring in more sustainability for your network. And the big difficult part really becomes is the relationship management. I see if you really see these two are cycles. This cycle is much easier. The growth cycle is still very easier. It's normally very exciting. It's always seeing you growing in different locations and so on and so forth. And you see your brand growing, and you always focused on building a lot of things around your brand. It's easy to do. But when it comes to the maturity cycle, when you are already established, when you have a lot of franchisees, at that time to continue to put eye on sustainability and also manage relationship with the franchisee is a very high demanding situation. So let's understand, when you get into the first cycle, what do you really do? You're growing your network. Your focus is on recruitment of quality franchisees, which I call the 4 fits. the strategic, operational, marketing, and financial. You see this written on SOMF FIT, which is strategic, financial, operational, and marketing. Then you choose the right kind of investor base. You also have to continue to capitalize, because when you are growing, a lot of things, your own resources, infrastructure, everything has to grow. So you need to really see that how you're going to capitalize. Sometimes franchising itself is a capitalization of business, but sometimes you need to also look at external sources to get right kind of capitalization in the business. I feel that a lot of franchisors are not able to sustain their growth because they are not adequately capitalized. That's very, very important. You need to have a profitable business model and continue to keep eye on the profitability so you can demonstrate to potential franchisee that this really works. You need to have also dedicated, reach points. How do you reach out to potential investors? And today investors are coming from all over. They are seeing you at different levels. They see you on Instagram, they see you on your other Facebook channels, they see you on your other marketing materials, anything. Most of the good inquiries actually come on your existing franchisees. Your existing franchisees actually get the most of the inquiries coming in. So it can be, inquiries can come from different kind of structures. Also very clearly defining who you want from a location viewpoint, which locations you really want to go, and also continue to do your demand analysis and brand positioning. As you are doing that growth journey, you also have to keep an equal focus on your brand management. How you are able to deliver what I call consistent product at different locations. That's something to me is key. Consistency in our product and service delivery is very, very important. How you mirror your staff everywhere. Now, this is something which one has to learn from McDonald's. They have the very entry level staff. Normally these are 18 to 21, 22, 23-year-old kind of people, but they just behave same. They have really championed this whole structure, that how they can mirror every single staff member in that thing. Standardization to me is the key in franchising. Why people get into franchising, because they want the convenience of doing that business. And if you are able to not bring in that standardization, the business becomes confused and the franchisee starts experimenting. And that's where the business starts going wrong. No conflicting message. You need to be very simple, straight, what you stand for and what you really offer. Sometimes brands are communicating too much, and that's not required. You need to be very straightforward and very simple as far as messaging is concerned. You need to have a lot of documented procedures and standards. You need to also see that all the guidelines are followed, and you also need to have a very strong technology or software so that you are able to monitor what is going on. So this is your pretty much the growth cycle. Growth cycle is really ramping up your infrastructure, your capabilities, getting your training set, getting your standardization set, and so on and so forth. When you get into the second cycle, when you already got to a certain level, the first level of growth, this is where I think most of the companies don't fail. Most of the companies pass through. If they have an interesting brand, an interesting product, and a good team to back it up, they would do the growth cycle. That's not a problem. Like a look at, for example, of a company called Moti Mahal. Now, old, strong brand, started franchising very strongly in early 2000, obviously went into all markets, and they did this cycle right. They got the right locations. Every mall wanted them to be in part of it. And they were very excited. A lot of media, a lot of PR, good launches, everything was fine. But the next cycle, when they had about 50 odd stores and they have to sustain that and they want to continue to retain their customer base, that's where they started going wrong. So at sustainability, how you are continue to see your competitive advantage is still there. You still have a very strong differentiated factor. Your continuous innovation. Now, this is where the problem really happens. As a company, if I innovate, how do I translate that innovation to my franchise? You will not feel, but McDonald's would do constant innovation at a store to store level, which not probably able to, a lot of customers will not able to find, but these are small innovations, which is a very continuous innovation. They would continue to do that. A very good franchisor would continue to do this smaller innovation. Franchisees like that. They don't like too surprised by seeing very big change happening. They don't mind having a constant small change rather than a big change, because big change would ask for a new capital to be diffused and so on. So you want to really radically change your product because now the demand is different, and you go back to your franchisee and say, this would need fresh investment. They are not ready to do that. Or you change your brand guidelines and suddenly you come down to your franchisee and say, now you have to put more capital for the new guidelines, new signages, new interiors, new everything. They don't like that. But if you are doing what I call incremental changes, small changes, a franchisee is always able to do that. Seamless operations and monitoring the quality. Quality again is very clearly, you need to see that how it is constantly improving, how you're going ahead of that. And that's something which is now much easier to manage because consumer is giving you more feedback than ever. Now there are a lot of rating sites and a lot of other things you can really monitor what is there. You also have to constantly address the economic and environmental changes. What is happening around you? How people are behaving? What are they going to do? How are they going to consume? All that we have normally a very early signals, but we don't react unless and until we have a big change in the way our business was running. So we need to start reacting when we see some early signals, and that's where we need to do that. Revising budgets and periodically evaluating ROIs. So you need to see every single PL as an independent PL. You cannot generalize the situation. And this is another thing which is problem happens when a franchisor, I would see, they would not do store to store PLs. They would do a little bit of a averaging out, and that's something which is not important because every franchisee is unique, every location is unique. So you need to do a independent PL and also bring in some kind of design thinking in the innovation cycle. Very, very important. I feel the biggest thing in the sustainability of any business, not necessarily franchise, is innovation. How you are as a company thinking on taking on one side a lot of data, which is business intelligence, so to say, churning that data into meaningful understanding, and then bringing your product or a service or a delivery efficiencies or innovation in the business. The fourth thing, which is to me the heart of any franchise business, is relationship management. How you manage relationship with your franchisees and your stakeholders, your customers, your vendors, your suppliers. Everything would really speak about how your network is going to run. The customer satisfaction and service and reputation management is one of the areas which needs to focus. Continuous guidance from a franchisor for following protocols, motivating franchisees to invest time to maintain the venture. Now, this is again big problem. When your franchisee would start the first 6-7 months, 1 year, he's in the business, he's very excited, he does more than what he's expected, and suddenly the business start doing well and is profitable, and he start putting lesser time in his own business. Now, end of the day, it is his business. You cannot participate. And most of the franchisors also feel good because the store is profitable, as a responsibility, business is doing well. But you start feeling that he's already become an absentee franchise. Now, this is getting ready for a disaster. This is going to ready for a disaster because he's now lost control of the business, but while business is doing well, he doesn't look after the business is not very well kept. His interiors are run down, things have run down, but the business looks from a profitability viewpoint at the same level. And that is a stage where you need to motivate your franchisee to go back to the business. Go back to the business, start putting the hours back, start maintaining your business, get to basics right in structure. If your people are not following the rules or brand guidelines are not followed, and things are like very, very small things. I've seen franchisees when they start, they have everything. They have nice stationery, they have all the branded collaterals, everything is there. Slowly, there is no motivation left for them. They start using their own documentation. The bags which they use are very different now. So everything starts declining. While it would not so much signal on your sometimes initial days on your performance of the business financially, so it doesn't come in the notice. But you need to really continue to motivate your franchisee. Also, how do you build skill development measures for your franchisee and their teams, and also flexible platforms for continue to bring in better marketing tools. So if you are designing your business model, design how your growth cycle is going to be. What is your growth cycle? And as you are focusing on growth cycle and you already now a certain size, you need to also start focusing on sustainability and relationship management. So if I have to design a business model for a franchise company, I will always say, keep 4 big pillars in your business. And every day, as a franchise owner or a brand owner, you need to go and visit all 4 pillars. You need to see how your network is growing, how you're focusing on your brand management, how you're doing work on your sustainability and relationship management. So now this is what is going to be very important, and this is something which over the years I have learned. And how do I, in very simple terms, define franchising? I call the PCMB of franchising, and when I would tell you what it stands for, you will say the simplest thing you've learned, and you will always remember in franchising, because this is something which we all remember growing up. So what does it stand for? It stands for physics, chemistry, maths, and biology. Now, this is something which we all have learned, right? So how do I define franchising as a physics, chemistry, maths, and biology of your business? So brand management is actually a biology. It's all about the brand DNA. It's a DNA of your business, and that's something which is very important. Anything else is can be negotiated, but this cannot be negotiated. I call the firm and flexible rule of franchising. Firm is what your brand is. You cannot compromise on your brand. Flexible are other things which we all talk about that, but your brand cannot be compromised. You need to really, everything you're doing is around that brand, and if that is compromised even in the early stage, a lot of times temptation for a franchisor to say, because I'm early and I'm building up my business, let me be flexible, let me give this option. And sometimes the franchisee would come and try to twist about the brand and its offering and things of that nature, and that's where you start going wrong. There is no deviation, not for 0.001%, because if that also is come, there would be time it would deviate for 1%, then it will be deviating from 10%, and it will go on. So as an attitude, you have a very clear philosophy that you have zero tolerance for any kind of a brand deviation. So what does it really mean? It means that whatever brand stands for, how it reaches your customer. I'm not talking about franchisee. I'm talking about franchisee is just a medium for you to pass your brand, what it stands for, to your customer. And in the whole process of this, nothing should be diluted. Nothing should be diluted. When you go to any McDonald's, KFC, or any other chain or a Starbucks, it doesn't matter if Starbucks has a partner called Tata or not, or something like that. Whatever Starbucks stands for, it delivers exactly like that to the customer. And that's something which is very tiring, but the most important role for any franchisor to be done that. But if you go into other chains and a lot of other chains, you will find that somewhere the brand, what it stands for, is not really reflected in the manner. It has started diluting at some level. It can be diluted by the franchisee's positioning. It can be diluted by the staff franchisee has, is not reflecting the same value. If you are able to understand what you really want to deliver to a customer and you want to keep it consistent, that's something which is very important part. And this is what I call the biology of the business. So how do you continue to rejuvenate your brand? It's a continuous exercise, very small incremental process. Again, I will repeat, there's no big one change you would like to do. This is something doesn't work anymore in any business, so to say. It is all about doing this very smaller increments to continue to rejuvenate your brand. Keeping it relevant is the most important idea. How do you keep the brand relevant for years to come? And that needs everyday small focus, small changes, small structure, continue to move up and up and up. Reinvent your brand, also keep doing, because the customer changes, profile changes, their buying behavior changes, their priorities changes. How do we reinvent our brand and communicate what we stand for? Like these days, if you see, a lot of our franchises are actually food. Our food has gone drastically different. Everything is changed. Everything, the way people consume, the packaging, direct to home kind of a business now. They're becoming more health conscious. They want more varieties. They're becoming global citizens. So everything is really becoming quite a bit for companies, and options are becoming much more. Today, people can go and open up a window of a Zomato, and they have thousands and thousands of options which are sitting there. How do I make myself relevant in that? Earlier, I was in one market, and in market there were 10 restaurants or 7 restaurants. I was just competing these 7. Now I'm competing 700. How do I make myself relevant to that audience? And how I reinstate my brand, and also to my own team, because they understand what we stand for and what philosophy we are on. So again, if you want to do that, this is called 3 parts to the whole brand management. The brand management is all about relationship. How do you manage brand is defining relationship with investors, partners, employees, how it is developing their equity for their, how we deliver the brand equity, and finally the loyalty. While loyalty is very, very difficult these days, but it is a constant effort. No more it will be once you earn it, it will stay with you. It will need to constantly earn it to keep that loyalty. Otherwise, they would move. Customers would move very, very fast. Even the most, where the brand loyalty was the highest, if you look at some auto brands or airlines or hospitality companies, where the loyalty is really the topmost priority for organizations and institutions, we have realized that people still switch extremely fast. extremely fast because there would be something else which would be so exciting. I remember I was absolutely a big loyalist for a Jet Airways, and Jet Airways at one point in time was not best at following the timings. So they would sometimes delay by 30 minutes, 1 hour, and things like that. And then you got this airline which has no frills, nothing available, Indigo. And I remember flying it one time, and they used to have a nice advertisement in their magazine. It used to say, "You fly in an airline not for the food which you want to have, not for the other things you want to have. You fly this airline only for a reason you want to reach a particular destination on time." And that's what we believe in. So they were so clear about the messaging. They clearly understood that people are not flying to have a good meal in the airline. Don't fly for other things which are happening. They are only flying for the reason because they want to reach on time. So there was a big loyalty shift. People started shifting because they wanted to reach on time, because they are busy, they're business people, they want to do some meetings, and they're taking these expensive tickets to reach at a particular place. So see how your communication is very clear and stands very relevant to your customer base. So 3 C's: build the consistency, clarity, and consistency, which means that you need to deliver these 3 elements every time when your brand is going. Now let's get into the next part. This is about biology. This is all about brand and how you bring the brand consistency. The second part is, to me, which is very important, is the maths. How your arithmetic is making sense. How everything which is in your business is making financial and operational sense. So it starts with, how do you really understand what I call the MWM, mastering what matters in franchising, which means microeconomics. Every business needs a microeconomics. It is about a task that creates systematic improvement to productivity, gives us a clear understanding of our profitability, on focusing our mind on future sustainability of the business, and that's what it classifies master what matters. If you see, there were 3 things we talked about. We talked about how do we continue to improve and challenge better productivity in our system. Productivity. I've seen franchise business model design which are overstaffed. We don't have any measure to really define productivity of people. I remember I invested into a chain which was a South Indian chain way back about 15, 16 years back. And this was like a small outlet they did, which is about 250 people and 250 square feet. And it had 18 people working in that restaurant. And when I looked at the restaurant design and looked at somebody, because I was invested with somebody, and I asked him a question, what is your maths about this 250 square feet having 18 people? He said, no, we have to run 2 shifts. Okay, that's fine. Then he had 3 classification of people. One was utility. They were only doing washing the dishes. There was another back of the house. They didn't do anything apart from making the food at the back of the house. And then there were front of the house, which were only serving the food. So in a small business, they had a very clearly departmentalization and so on and so forth. 18 people running a small South Indian restaurant, it has no feasibility, no viability. You need to have people multitasking. They need to define their roles when they want to do prep, when they're going to be doing that. So maybe they come 2 hours early to prep that, and then they're only dispensing the food, like what McDonald's would do, other companies would do. This is all about defining the productivity, how your business model has to be more efficient and more productive. That's very, very important. And I see a lot of Indian businesses absolutely don't spend time. These days, I'm telling everybody tells me that work from home is a great idea. I say it's a great idea. But if you want to really implement this idea, then you need to think completely like West thinks. West, this has been running for many, many years. Why they are successfully running that? Because they know what productivity they expect from an employee every single hour. So if they know their employee is going to put 40 hours in this week, they exactly know what they're going to get. And the problem is that you want to give people work from home in India, but you don't have analysis of what productivity to achieve. What do you achieve in their 8 hours? What they are going to do in their 1 single hour? So unless and until it is defined very well, you will never be able to control it and continue to improve it. And then you need to challenge the next level of employees and say, this is a benchmark of productivity. Then you have to really come down to this level. Always challenge your franchisees to really be more, work with less and be more productive. Work with less, be more productive. The second part is, how do you really understand the profitability of the business? Small margins, small micro changes make the business model greater. I met one of the CEOs, top CEOs, and I asked him questions and said, what is the biggest focus in your franchise network. He says, I'm only worried about how to improve margins. I say, spend no time any other thing. I continue to challenge that. And this was a large company, very large company. And I'll give you an example what he did. So he used to, every of his outlets, and they had about 1,500 outlets globally, and every outlet was using oil to make food. This is a normal process. They would use oil, and they felt that this was one of the big costs in their profitability mathematics. What they did was they worked with a very big company, engineering company, a chemical company. They understood that how we can change a little bit texture of oil so it can last more. In the overall profitability of the 1 year, just by twisting the oil which they were using a little bit, that it has more shelf life, they were able to save $3 million in their business. Now you really see, as a CEO, what matters it more. So if you have to do one single small change in your network, which made profitability go up by 3 million US, or overall saving go by, not profitability, but saving go by 3 million US. This is what exactly a CEO's role should be. So you have to go to question that how I'm going to increase the profitability at a unit to unit level. For it can be better from procurement, it can be from the production cost, or whatever it takes to really get that extra margin which is available. Even a small margin improvement would have a bigger impact on that. And third is, how do you really create a future ready business so that you are ready for a future sustainability. Another thing which is very important is act before it is too late. If your earlier data, your maths is telling you that something is not going right, either margins are dipping or sales cycles are dipping, or net consumer gain versus retention. So a lot of these are equations in your business. So write about 10 or 15 equations, and this is something which Francop, which is our consulting firm, does very well. So we write 10 golden rules, right? So we need to have work on sustainable retention of customer. If that is not happening, and I'm putting more focus on acquiring new customers, which means that my cost of acquisition would be higher. So all these 10 points, if they give me early indication that something has gone wrong, then I need to start acting much faster than waiting for it to become challenging. This is a cycle of franchising. So we call the dependent, interdependent, and independent, different stages, different strategies, right? Which means when you are starting as a franchisee, you are very dependent. You need to be told everything. You need to work very, very closely with the company. And then you become an interdependent. You know something and you still need some guidance. And then you get into the last stage, which is independent. At the independent stage, you would need a different kind of behavior. When you are dependent stage, or you are different structure. So when you're doing your maths of the business model, you need to understand your input cost. What is your input cost looking like? What is your output cost? What is your cost of acquisition of customers? What is your cost of delivery? Your cost of occupancy, your margins, and there are many other heads which would need to be really understood very clearly and created some basic benchmarks so that you are able to, handle your entire thing, and you can really define the PL. A lot of time franchisee comes and complains, I'm not profitable. But if you really send him a question, and I know working with a company, they used to send you a questionnaire to a franchisee and say, before even I can answer why you're not profitable, can you fill this for me? And the franchisee would go out and write what is my this and this, and they would put this with a national benchmark, and they come back quickly and say, your cost of acquisition is too high. You're never going to make money because you're not controlling your cost of acquisition. So actually this exercise helps franchisee also discover where they are going wrong and why they are not able to make a financial sense. But maths is good, maths is very important. But what I've realized in franchising, the chemistry is even better. It is very, very important. It's the relationship management, which is all about chemistry. Chemistry is between your franchisor and a franchisee, how they manage their relationship. So it starts with accountability. Now, this is to be understood very carefully. Some tension are good in relationship. Every relationship you have in life, if you have some tension in that, there is no relationship which would not have accountability. Your father-son accountability, husband-wife accountability, siblings have accountability. Some tension is good for relationship. The word is often used for this as a positive, creative tension is accountability. When it is positively created, it is accountability. Accountability at the right level. Understand it very carefully. Accountability at the right level stimulates sales, productivity, and good decision making. However, if it is overused, it can create a kind of a blaming culture and actually reduces people's motivation and productivity. So you need to really use accountability in the right sense. If you use it over, then it can become a disturbing situation. But if you use it right, it actually sets people in terms of doing it. So I asked my team in the morning when I was doing one of the reviews, and I said, if you can give me, I don't expect 8 hours for you to work, but if you work only 6 hours in a day, but tell me how you really did 6 hours, what you really achieved in that 6 hours. That's more important. So I'm not telling you to do 10 hours or 15 hours. I don't want you to do that. I want to see that all this going on. Give me 6 hours, but give me 6 hours accountability, that I can really read through that you actually put 6 hours. And that's very important. And they appreciate that part rather than somebody just pushing them to the wall. So now in relationship management, this is another very important. When you get into the maturity cycle, what I told the initial stage, when you get into maturity cycle, the only thing which works now with the franchisee is encouragement, recognition, and reward. This is so powerful, very, very powerful. Once you have a top franchisee been awarded as a top franchisee, he doesn't want to be second best. Every year he want to come for that slot. So he'll continue to challenge himself. He's not fighting anybody else. He's fighting himself and continue to do that. It happens. I tell everybody that get your children in the 5th or 4th or 5th class in between 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. If you are able to do that hard work, most likely they would end their K-12 in 1st, 2nd, 3rd. Most likely, because they are now part of the winning cycle. They have now got to a peer structure. The difficulty is, if in the early days you're not in that cycle and you are being recognized for what you're achieving, you'll not be able to get to. And the later stage is very hard. Even you put some extra tuition and everything else, it's very difficult to achieve that. So this is what happens when a franchisee comes to you. He brings in what I call FCH, fears, concerns, and hopes. That's what franchisee brings to you, to a franchisor. And franchisor does listen, explain, and resolve. Brings TCW, which is trust, connect, and work together at you. He brings in a lot of trust. He connects with you, understands your problem, and also commits to work together, and removes FAG, which is a fear, anger, and guilt. Now, this is a cycle. This is a cycle which really continue to happen. Your franchisee would continue to bring in a lot of fears, concerns, and hopes. You will have to go and listen, explain, and resolve. Bring the trust, connect, and work together attitude, which would remove the fear, anger, and guilt. So this is what is very, very important. And you need to really see that unless and until you are committed to this cycle on a constant structure, you're not investing into building relationships. Okay, so now let's get into what is a franchise excellence management. You need to recruit quality franchisees. Don't focus on too many. I mean, people come to me and say, I want 50 franchises. They say, forget about 50. Do first 5 right. That's what is important. And get the best people to be your franchisee at the first 5 franchisees. Mentor their performance in the initial days. Listen to the franchisee feedback. Engage franchisee with the brand and lead with credibility. Now, last part of the, the 4 subjects was physics. Physics is a formula how to achieve network growth. It's a very scientific way of understanding how you're going to grow a network and continue to have inertia for your network to grow. So again, coming back to the whole cycle, recruiting of quality franchisees, choosing the right investor group, a profitable business model, how the infrastructure has to be defined, dedicated sources, portals of information. And Franchise India itself is a very large part of network growth. So we work on a very scientific way of from how many leads you need to generate, how many leads would go into an expression of interest, how many expression of interest would go into a tri-party discussion, which eventually would fall into a letter of intent, and letter of intent would eventually convert into this. I normally don't measure results too much. I measure how many tri-party meetings we are doing. So if any member of mine comes and says, I did 30 tri-party meetings in this month, which means I got the brand and the investor together, then I know he's on the right track. But if somebody comes and say, I did 2 transactions, but my tri-party was only 5, then I say, you were lucky that you were successful in this month, but it will not far that you will fail in the next month and next month. It's a funnel, it's a process. It is a scientific structure of continue to look at what is going on. A lot of companies are inconsistent in franchising because they don't follow the process. They would be sometimes very opportunist. They would get some franchisees and then they would forget they're in the business. They're not focusing on that and they would not be able to constantly grow. And when they're not constantly growing, they would not have dedicated infrastructure to support that. The flow also becomes inconsistent, and hence their platform as a business model would not be a full-fledged franchise business. So this was something which I wanted to share today, and it was all about getting into the science of franchising. This is a session which we want to do that. If you have any questions for me, I will be more than happy to take that. Otherwise, continue to come. And so there is Nitin has one question which I should see. So Nitin has a question: how Domino's doesn't have good, interiors and maintenance. I don't know about maintenance. I think interiors, they always don't want to spend too much on interiors because they are a back of the house functions, because consumer only sees them and you deliver Domino's at somebody's home. But my understanding is that the only thing they don't compromise is great equipment. It's all beautiful world-class equipment, and that's what the engine of their business model is. They have very strong capability to understand. If you go in the interiors of in the process of Domino's, it's very well engineered QSR operations. When I say engineered QSR operations, which means that they understand speed, so they understand how they're going to deliver very, very fast. And you please try to understand, in India, people get hungry at 12:30. They order by 1 or something like that, and they want the food to be on the table at 1:30. Now, this is happening simultaneously with everybody. So Domino's suddenly has an order which would start roping in at 12:30 to 1 at a maximum speed. So they know this is not just rush hour. This is really about the hour. This is the hour they would get the maximum business. Not in the evenings, not in the, I think this is a day, but suddenly all the offices and everybody gets hungry and they want the food in 30 minutes. So it is not, if you're not by infrastructure design to deliver that piece, you will miss out a lot of customers. So they become focused. And this is where a lot of Indian brands I've seen, they also want to say, my pizza is great, but a question is, can you deliver in the same manner like Domino's can? Can you be consistent all the time? Answer is no, because they're not designed from infrastructure. They are not designed from that infrastructure viewpoint. People can make a good pizza in their home also. There's small ovens which cost you 20,000 or even 5,000 rupees. You can make a pizza at that. Why would they put 8 lakh rupee conveyor machine to do that? Because they know they can churn 16 pizzas at one puga cycle. And that is where the efficiency of the entire thing. So Domino is a very good example of what they do. They obviously don't spend on interiors. That's not their business. Their business is like a factory to have a great equipment and a process and systems to churn very fast. Another question which I've come from Prashant. So if I have anybody else's question, I can take that because I have a few minutes before I can call off. So I will take the Prashant's question, and then if you have more questions, or even if you want to go and introduce yourself, go out and do that. If you're already a franchisor, which means that you're already franchising, write AF. And if you are a new franchisor, starting now franchising, write NF. Just go out and introduce yourself. And I take a question from Prashant. We're about to launch our product soon, but franchisees are looking for credit benefits in the initial stock. How should we proceed with them? Now, this is a question which I have to have a little bit detailed understanding, Prashant, but I will never encourage credit because that's also was a problem in the older distribution kind of a mechanism, because distributor was kind of a financer who was putting the stock on the credit in the market, and then his responsibility was going and recovering that. And that I would never encourage in franchising. I normally would like to do it on a sale or sometimes SOR, which means sale or return, which means I can give the benefit of no inventory blockage. Sometimes franchisee is asking for a credit because he doesn't want to lock his money with the stock, and he feels that if the stock is stuck, then I'd get into problem. It's not a bad idea to do SOR if you want to give somebody that benefit, which means sale or return. So which means that I have no risk on the stock, but you also as a franchisor has no risk on the stock being transferred to franchisee, because you are also having money for that stock lying with you. But you have to take a responsibility. If the stock is not moving, then you can change the stock or bring fresh stock, or there can be a refund of non-moving stock or something like that. But you need to hedge yourself, And if you feel that the franchisee also needs to hedge, create balance between both. Hope I answered your question, Prashant. Nitin Sharma has a question. I've observed that most food franchise fail in India. McDonald's, Domino's are self-operated. Franchisee, they are also franchising, but they are master franchisee, larger regions. They are great examples, and they even in the unit example, McDonald's and Domino's have done very well. And you're right, there are a lot of things in food which are very important for understanding. It starts from cost of acquisition, process cycle, customer acquisition cycle, APCs, which is average cost of a ticket, absolute margins, a lot of things really. And these companies have over the time refined all that. They have actually made the science of this business so well, so that actually they can have a one much larger predictability than a lot of Indian companies. And I feel that some Indian companies also are good enough. I mean, I especially feel that wherever there is product can be standardized, say Baskin Robbins, if you're an ice cream company, then you put unit franchisees. Subways have been a great example. While a lot of people have different opinions, but I like the company. I feel that I question myself that if you have a sandwich store which sells you cold sandwiches can become 1,000 franchise in India, why would a biryani company not be able to do 1,000 franchises? I'm not saying that this is not happening now. A lot of other companies have started doing, but because they make it business model simple enough to be duplicated. And Indian businesses, Indian food business especially, are very complex, very, very complex. And they might be great product they might deliver, but business model is so very complex that it becomes very difficult to standardize. And that's where a lot of engineering has to happen. How do we really create? And there is a lot of companies in West. If you go and say London, there are a couple of companies which are based on Indian food, which have actually championed how they can really create what I call fast food kind of Indian food. And they're doing very well. They were doing very well. They understood how they can really deliver a great product without so much. So we don't really work on a back end side, so we don't work on too much of supply chain capabilities. Now technology can help. Technology can really help that part, which was not earlier available. Now I think we can standardize everything in the restaurants and bring better efficiency. But yes, you are right. I would still wait to see a very good franchise system in food, especially coming from India. So great. So this was very useful. This was a good session, and we luckily finished in the right time today. Unlike last time, I was overrunning this system, so I must have pushed a little bit slides a little faster. If you have any questions, reach out to me directly. I'll put my email ID also. And do join in for the next session, which will be the fourth session. It looks like that we will have to do one more session. If I'm able to run through in the right, then we'll probably finish in 6, but otherwise I'll take one more session to finish the entire content. So I'm available at gm@gauravmarya.com, and I'm also available at 9812443330. This is my direct phone number. Just send me a WhatsApp, share with me if you have any interest, and anywhere we can work together. And even if you have a promising startup and you feel that that can be franchised and taken next level, reach out to me directly. And we don't pick up too many startups in a year, but maybe 3 or 4 promising startups where we can invest and help you to go to next level. So thank you very much. Thanks for your time today. Please take care of yourself and continue to come to our webinars. And we do many webinars in a day. Today I'm doing about 5 of them in a full day, which is the idea of engaging people, engaging our large community, which we have built over the last 24 years. And between Franchise India and Francop, we are also available to service your requirement if you want to make yourself franchise ready or need any kind of strategy building up for your business model. Thank you very much.